With 5 months remaining before the expiration of the current Farm Bill, lawmakers in Washington are facing an ever-closing window to pass legislation. Originally scheduled for Wednesday, the Senate Ag Committee began its Farm Bill markup Thursday morning. We talked with the UNL Extension Public Policy Specialist Brad Lubben that morning and asked what the discussions entail.
It's interesting. We've been waiting really for months for the Farm Bill process to get underway, particularly since last November's supposed framework agreement on what the Farm Bill should look like to achieve budget cuts. Finally, the Senate last week announced proposed cuts and proposed language to begin discussions this week. It got delayed this week for a day based on some reaction and concerns about the language, but now we're underway and discussing today.
What does the language look like? What does this Farm Bill, or at least the proposals for it, look like?
Well, clearly much of the focus is on the commodity program and where we go with the commodity program. The Senate really took last fall's framework agreement but modified it with some substantial tweaks in terms of what they proposed. Essentially a revenue-based shallow loss safety net. So if you think about, a producer expects to produce some amount of crop revenue. The safety net that's proposed in the Senate version kicks in at some percentage, 89% in this case, of that expected revenue. The shallow loss program means that the safety net, if it kicks in, covers the first losses below that guarantee. But it also kicks out, and in this case stops at 79%. So it just covers the 10% of losses below the guarantee. The rest of that is the producer's responsibility. There is no safety net, there really is no floor. Producers have to figure out how to combine some shallow loss program here with risk management of their own, presumably crop insurance and other tools.
And one of the problems that both the Senate and House say is coming to front is that the different areas, be it the Midwest and the Southeast or the Southwest, they produce different crops, and so they need different things in the Farm Bill.
That's been a historical contention, that the Farm Bill is more parochial than it is partisan. Parochial in the sense of different commodities and different regions have different interests. That clearly came through with the concern about the initial language of last week. Last fall's agreement talked about essentially a myriad of options, multiple choice kind of Farm Bill. Here's a revenue safety net for the crops that like that. Here's the old price-based safety net for the crops that like that. For cotton, which has to come up with something new to satisfy WTO trade issues, here's a crop insurance alternative. This bill essentially abandons that proposed price safety net. That old existing program, direct payments, counter-cyclical payments, gone. Acre is gone in favor of a new shallow loss revenue-based program. The only thing that's still in there is the marketing loan from days of old. So it's a very different kind of safety net that has a different impact on commodities from the South, for example, as it does commodities from the Midwest here.
The current Farm Bill expires on September 30th. How tight is this window to get something through by that point?
Well, clearly we have to do something by September. The current Farm Bill expires, and it doesn't just disappear. It reverts to language that is called permanent legislation that dates to 1949. We're not ready for that either. The likelihood that we'll pass a new Farm Bill by September seems to be virtually nil. The Senate may in fact get its work done here in the next couple weeks or so and get a bill through the Senate, but then the House has to act, and it would appear that they're going to take a very different track, at least in initial discussion. The chances of getting something through by September seem impossible.
You see a strong possibility that extends through the end of the year?
That's right. At some way or another, we'll have to look for an extension. Is it a very short-run extension to try and prompt a lame duck session of Congress to finish this? Or is it an extension that extends into early 2013? Either way, it'll probably come with some cost because of budget cuts along the way. So there's pressure to get it done and get it settled. The political challenges are difficult.
At the time of this taping, the Senate Ag Committee had just started its markup session.